Hello, Eva. How are you? Hey, Eva. How are you?
Hey, Dennis, I'm good. How are you? We might have a small group today. Maybe I will jump off this call early and join another one.
Okay.
I have 20 people supposed to come to the shop roll day. So I'm sending Alex an email to do an extra training. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, Kyle. How are you today?
I'm doing well, sir. I hope you are.
Okay, I'm not hearing you. Let's see what's going on here. Um, hmm. It's always something. Kyle, can you say something now?
Yeah, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay,
There was a
cool.
problem at my end. I wasn't picking up the audio.
All righty. Good. No, we're doing well. Just extremely busy at the minute.
Okay,
That's a good problem.
I'll talk fast. Hey, Allison, how are you?
Well, thank you. And you?
Doing fine, thanks. All right. Well, since everyone's so busy, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about um, EQ, and I don't know if you all are familiar with that term. You certainly heard of IQ, which is called intelligence quotient, and EQ is emotional quotient. Easy for me to say, right? Um, and it's basically what you'll find. Sometimes you think about people who are really effective dealing with other people, and almost always you'll find that those folks are very emotionally high in EQ. High, the ability to communicate with people sometimes has nothing to do with actual intellectual capability, but more of their emotional capability. So we're going to talk about that, and I think this is a really important issue. It's not something that's really taught in school. I certainly didn't have it when I was in school, but it is becoming something now that's much more of a consideration, because how you function, how you get things done, really can affect you in many parts of your life, including your business. Um, so let's jump right in, since I know everyone is really busy, and we'll do that. So let me. There we go. Okay. It.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anna. I'm the managing director of Techstars LA, and I'm also an executive coach. And what we're talking about today is emotional intelligence, or EQ, and the role it plays in your success as a founder. EQ, which is sometimes referred to as emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, I'm going to use those two interchangeably, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, and recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of everyone around you. So research suggests that EQ may be twice or even 4 times as important as intelligence or IQ as hard skills in your success. In the startup community, and in particular in the tech world, we place like an inordinate value on hard skills and kind of what you know and where you went to school and what your role is. But the fact is the soft skills are probably harder to train and even more important in your overall success than the hard skills. But they're difficult to pin down and identify and find ways to develop. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is actually identifying what those soft skills are and then how you can build them. I actually do believe that emotional intelligence is something that you can practice. I also believe that we're never actually done practicing, so we're constantly, working on it. Let's look at some different tools. What we're going to cover in this is self-awareness, first of all, which is the cornerstone of everything. You can't work on it until you're aware of it. How to be present, how to use presence to pay attention to what's happening around you, how to recognize and manage fear, what flexible thinking is and how to use it as a tool to grow your company. Then we're going to take these skills and we're going to apply them where all the problems show up, which is other people. Because, we don't have problems. We only have problems in relation to other people. So we're going to look at feedback, how to get it, how to give it, and why this is important, and then spend a little time talking about coaching and how to coach yourself and how to coach your team around you to help them grow. I believe that personal growth drives company growth. So the more you can develop these skills and the more you can be a great coach for your team, the more effective and productive you're all going to be. So what exactly is EQ? The definition of EQ is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions, and recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. In practical terms, this means being aware that emotions drive behavior and impact people both positively and negatively. And learning how to manage them, both ourselves and others, is key, especially when we're under pressure, as we often are. So we can look at EQ in 4 quadrants. And this was developed by Daniel Goleman and based on a lot of psychology research at the university level. So first we've got self-awareness, which is really where it all begins. This is the ability to understand your own strengths and weaknesses, to understand what your core values are. What do you care about? What really drives you? You'd be amazed how few people actually know what it is that motivates them. What's your why? And then what are the things that set you off? What are your triggers that get you into the emotional part of your brain so that you can't think as clearly? Being self-aware means understanding all of this. Then we move to self-management, which includes being able to stay calm and positive in a crisis and being able to recognize and detach from feelings rather than letting them drive your behavior. Good self-management allows us to focus under pressure and be adaptable, to be in a state of continuous improvement and to set high goals and reach for them. So now that we've got ourselves kind of all under control, we move to social awareness, which starts with empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of someone else. This applies both with your team, but also with your customers. The next level of social awareness is being able to read a room. So when you walk in, you can understand the dynamics and you can see how people are relating to each other, which is going to help you communicate better. It doesn't take a huge leap to understand how this is going to help you sell more and also help you raise money. Then in the last quadrant, we have the ninja level EQ skills, the social skills, which includes everything from being able to give and accept feedback well, to being able to build and inspire trust, to use your understanding of someone else's perspective to influence them, and then the ability to be an inspiring leader, which is something that we all want. Many investors, myself included, ask questions around EQ before making an investment. So the core thing I look at when I'm looking at a CEO, is this someone that I would work for? Is this someone that I believe that I could follow as a leader? And that really goes directly to EQ. What I'm saying is this a person with high EQ who I believe has the ability to be an inspirational leader? So that's pretty deep, because you may walk into a pitch meeting and think, wow, what they care about is how good is my idea and how good's my plan and how good my slides are, when the person sitting across the table from you is really looking at, is this someone I could follow? So making an investment in EQ and really thinking about it is going to just make you, such a more impactful leader and make those meetings go so much better. You know, I think EQ is like, it's like a little bit like good taste. Like everyone thinks they have it. You know, everyone thinks they have good taste. Like everyone thinks they have high EQ, but like that can't really possibly be true, right? So in practical terms, you know, the truth is, for good or bad, that all of this stuff is related. There is no such thing as a decision that is devoid of feeling. As a leader, you want to manage what you say and what you do. You've got to know what you're feeling, because your thoughts are driving your feelings and your actions. Your feelings are determining your thoughts and what you do. And believe it or not, your actions, what you do, actually influences your thoughts and your feelings. So the idea that you could kind of take emotion out of the equation, as some of us would like to do, and just be completely data-driven, it's just absolutely not realistic. Ignoring your feelings in all of this is just never going to work. So we have to understand how the three things work together. What we're really trying to do when we build EQ is get our two brains to work together. You know, we have our feeling brain, which is wired unconsciously to keep us safe. And a lot of these the actions we take are driven by impulses that are just really deep and that we may not even fully understand. So as a leader, you want to become fluent in EQ so you can use all these tools to build better teams, to build better companies, to have a greater impact on your customers and everyone around you. And there's like a huge additional bonus from understanding and investing in EQ, which is that your friends and family and probably even your dog are going to like you better. So let's dive right into self-awareness. How many people think that they have high self-awareness? I'm expecting everyone's hands to go on. Come on. Okay. According to Harvard Business Review, 95% of us report having high self-awareness, but actually only 10 to 15% do. So that means the majority of people don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and don't know, you know, how their words and their behavior affect other people. Like, wow, that feels like a really big problem to me. So if you're the majority of people who think you're self-aware but actually aren't, like, that's a massive problem for not only you, but for your company, because especially at the beginning, you are your company. So let's look at, you know, a really, really extreme example of someone who's not self-aware. And I just like to stop and note that, like, I think a lot of us have become aware that we're not self-aware recently because there's a lot of people that have taken these unconscious bias tests online. You know, we all think, oh, I don't have unconscious bias. Like, I'm completely not biased against anyone. And then we take the unconscious bias test and it shows that we are. So the fact is, there's a lot happening in our brains that we don't know. But let's look at an extreme example here. So, you know, someone who's not self-aware cannot accept feedback, don't know what they're good at, don't know what they're bad at, don't know what triggers them, so aren't able to identify when they get into an emotionally triggered state. They might actually like have an inflated sense of their own performance, tend to take credit for, does anyone know anyone like this? Tend to take credit for other people's achievements and blame others when things don't work out. And finally, they may even like hurt other people without realizing it. You know, I'm sure we've all worked for someone who isn't self-aware. And it's an incredibly painful thing when you're, especially when you're in a reporting position with someone who lacks self-awareness. It's just almost unbearable. So now let's look at someone who has high self-awareness. Someone with high self-awareness understands what they're feeling and why. They know their own strengths and weaknesses. They know what drives them and what they care about and what their values are, which, by the way, also informs the company's values and helps them bring in people that share those values. Because they know who they are, they can present themselves with confidence, but also humility, and then make better decisions quickly and even in uncertain situations. So early on in life, like, this might not matter so much. You know, we've all seen people who lack self-awareness who are high achievers in school. So when you're in school, you know, the rules are clear, the guardrails are clear. You know what you need to do to get an A in this class or that class. The teachers aren't really looking for self-awareness. They're looking for, you know, material that you've handed in on a test. It's very transactional. When you get out into the real world, right, and in particular when we're trying to build companies, you know, and how you affect other people, your ability to like inspire people to come follow you and work for you, your ability to convince people to buy your product, all of those skills that relate to EQ become so much more important. And that's when the difference between people that have high self-awareness and those that don't really starts to ramp up. So we're gonna go over a quick way to get started building your own self-awareness. So the first step is getting a baseline, like what do you know about yourself? So this is a pretty easy exercise. You're gonna write down four lists of 5 things each. When asked to describe ourselves, like we normally focus on the external stuff, kind of back to the hard skills. So we talk, you know, who are you as a person? You might think, oh, well, I went to this school and, you know, this is my job title and this is where I grew up and these are the things I know about. We tend to talk about things that are external, but what I'm talking about is our inner self, not our external self, which is a lot harder sometimes for us to identify. So you're gonna write down your strengths, improvement areas, your core values, and the things that trigger you. Once you've got your list, you don't wanna like necessarily post it on your social media, but you might wanna like share it with someone that knows you really well and get their reaction. Like what is on your list that they didn't expect and what is missing from your list that they think should be there? And that can be really informative. So I'd like to just spend a minute on personality assessments because sometimes when people think self-awareness, they think, oh, I should go take the Myers-Briggs or I should take the DISC or the Enneagram or the Strengths Finder. I've taken all of these, by the way. So I think they're really useful, but they're kind of just one piece. An assessment on its own doesn't create self-awareness. It's just a tool in kind of pointing out blind spots, things you don't know about yourself, or just giving you just kind of another perspective or a set of vocabulary to talk about, who you are. So to illustrate this, I will throw up some of my results and talk about how these sort of inform or relate to my own self-awareness and self-assessment. So think about these things as preferences or tendencies rather than fixed qualities. And that's really, really helpful because then it sort of gets you out of this idea of this is how I am to this is what I prefer, right? This is what I prefer. And then I can kind of correct for that. So I prefer extroversion, right? Which means maybe sometimes I actually need to build my inner introvert up. I am very high level, strategic. That's what strategic, intuitive is, so I like to stay on the top and think in frameworks, right? So sometimes I can need to spend a little more time like working on the details and building up from the bottom. Judging, dominance, input, activator. I have a super strong preference for making decisions. I like to be in charge, right? That also means on the flip side, I have trouble with followership. In any event, these can be very useful. They are one piece of the puzzle, but they're kind of not the beginning and the end. So here's what it looked like when I did this full exercise on kind of strengths and growth and values and triggers. It's a little scary for me to put this up here because I'm like, wow, I'm telling you an awful lot about myself. But, self-awareness and opening that door is a little scary. It's like, what if I discover I'm not perfect, right? So guess what? You're not. None of us are. But the more you get to know yourself, there's real power here. There's real learning and growth. And, the better you're going to be in every area of your life. So we can think about all this information about yourself in kind of 4 different boxes. So the first one is your open self, the things that are known to you that are known to others. And then you have the hidden self, which is you know it about you, but maybe other people don't know, right? So with a hidden self, what you want to actually try to do is make that box as small as possible. The more you reveal and share about yourself, the better your communication and your relationships are going to be, and the more you can learn. So there's a lot, it's scary to divulge things that maybe feel private to you, just about how you are and what you care about, but the more you do that, the better your connections are gonna get. Okay, so let's talk about the unknown for a minute. I don't really get this. I'm like, how can there be something about me that I don't know and no one else knows? It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, like, does it really, no one hears it, does it exist? I don't know. But the one to really focus on, though, is the blind spots. So the blind spots is stuff about you that's obvious to everyone else that you don't know, right? And this is the really scary one. So the more you can open the lid to that box and look in it and get the things that are over there into the open self and out into the open and expand that green box, the better everything is going to be for you. And the more you're going to be able to connect with people in an authentic way. So now we're going to talk about presence, which is really the cornerstone of self-management. So there's physically being in the room, like we're all here, but we have various degrees of sort of actual focus and mental presence that we're bringing. So mindful presence is being aware and attuned to where you are.
Sorry, I'm not getting any sound. Oh, wait just a second here. Figure out what's going on.
I could hear just fine.
Okay. Give it a try. Tell me if you can hear this. Can you
And
hear what's going on right
happening
now?
with your feelings and the feelings of everyone around you.
Yeah.
So when
Okay.
you think about mindfulness, you know, everyone thinks meditation. So meditation is amazing. And I highly recommend that everyone do it. But the fact is, meditation is not the only tool that you have in your toolbox to get present. Let's just do a quick exercise. It's called feet on the floor. Just notice that both of your feet are fully connecting through your shoes to the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, feel where the chair is coming into contact with your body. Just close your eyes for a minute and listen to what you hear in the background. Imagine that there's a string that's pulling straight from the top of your head all the way through to the ceiling above you. And as you do that, you'll notice that you'll sit up a little bit straighter and that you'll open up your chest a little bit so you're able to breathe a little bit more. And then just open your eyes and really look at everything that's around you. What color are the walls? Who are you sitting next to? How are you feeling right now? What's going on? Take a deep breath. And then you're back in the room. So I don't know about you, but I just did that myself and I feel different now, and I feel like now I'm gonna talk slower and I'm gonna be able to make more eye contact with you. And it took 30 seconds. So if you do that before you start a meeting, especially if it's a meeting that's kind of got a lot of tension and charge, like you're just gonna have a much better meeting. There's also a great way to do this with a group. It's called red, yellow, green. And it's a really great way to start a team meeting. You just go around the room and everyone checks in whether they're feeling red, yellow, or green. So green means I'm in the flow. I'm calm, I'm rested, there's nothing bothering me. I'm fully ready to be present and be creative. It's great if everyone's in green. It's usually not the case. Yellow means there might be some anxiety fluttering around the edges. Something's a little off, not quite right. Either I'm distracted about something that's happening at home or like I'm bothered by something at work. And so, I might not be 100% here, but I'm 75% here. And then there's red. So if someone checks in red, it means there is something that is really upsetting me and I am in a full emotional high alert state right now. Right? It might be a really big problem at home. It might be something at work. And by the way, you don't have to say, if you're in the red, you don't have to tell people why you're in the red. It might be something that you don't feel comfortable sharing, which is completely fine. But it is really important that your team knows that you're red. Because if you're red, you got to go deal with that. You can't do whatever this meeting is right now. It's just not going to go well. So if you do red, yellow, green, and one of your teammates checks in red, ask them what they need right now. Ask them if they need to leave, ask them if they need to have a conversation about it. So take care of your people first. If you have someone in red, or if you're the one in red, deal with that, and whatever it was that you were going to discuss in the meeting can wait. So there's a bunch of benefits you're going to get if you're fully present. The first one is really simple, just awareness. You're going to notice more of what's happening in the room, including people's body language, and you're going to be able to hear more of what's being said. So you're just going to pick up more of what's going on. That goes along with higher level listening. So you're going to be able to deeply listen and have empathy for the people around you if you're present, which you cannot do if you're distracted or you're checking your phone or you're kind of in and out of the room, right? And it means you're going to get the content. We have so much trouble with communication. It's amazing how often you'll leave a meeting and one person heard one thing and the other person heard something else. And if you're fully present, you reduce the chances of that happening. The third thing is your creative brain is going to be fired up. So you're going to be able to actually like engage with whatever is the problem or the thing you're discussing. And by the way, if there's no problem or meaty topic of discussion, and it's just a meeting to report on stuff, you shouldn't be having the meeting. A good meeting is a meeting where there's some creative problem solving that needs to happen. Finally, you're going to have a positive impact on the people around you. Do you know those people that when you meet them and they shake your hand, they make eye contact, and they make you feel like you are the most important person in the world, and you have that jolt of energy that comes into you, those incredibly special people? If you practice presence, you will become one of those people, and you will have that impact on everyone around you, and there is just no greater gift than being that person for someone else. One of the biggest mistakes we make in life is living in the future, so worrying about things that haven't happened yet. So in the startup world, we worry about like, whether customers are going to like our product, or like if we're going to run out of money in 6 months, or what if our competitor gets there first, or, some other thing that we have no control of and isn't actually on the table today. The other thing we like to do is live in the past. So, having regret that we didn't make a different move yesterday, or resentment against someone else who didn't do something that they were supposed to do for us that has now created a problem, none of which is on the table today. So the team you have in the room with you today, the product you have today, the angel investor who just committed to being the first person to write you a check to get your product out the door, those are the things that are on the table today. And being present, will help you engage with today's problems using the best faculties you have today. Being present so you can bring your whole self into the room to lead is just going to be key to handling whatever comes your way.
Okay. So we're gonna stop today on the video. I would like to get feedback from you all as to just generally, does this make sense to you in terms of something to learn, something to be better at? I like the way she started off by saying, "What is your why?" Remember our friend Simon, and I warned you that this would be a theme that will come up in so many different ways, and here it is, happened again. So I'd love to hear feedback from you all and what you think about this whole idea of EQ, and then I'm going to tell you a couple of quick stories. Anybody?
I found it very interesting what she had to say, taking the different assessments, character structure assessments she'd taken, and how to draw from that, learn what your strengths and weaknesses are. I plan on watching that again, because there were points that she made that I really would like to go in and do some research myself, so I can better identify the why and how to relate to the customer.
Yeah, I think also Daniel Goleman's book, which I just posted on the Facebook page, the what it looks like. I'd really highly recommend that book. It's really the basis for a lot of the understanding that people have on this whole subject. This is a relatively new discipline, if you will, the study of EQ. So I would encourage that if you have an interest in kind of deep dive into the background of it. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, basically, what we've seen, I guess, in our lives, many of us, is that this sort of thing maybe was more common in athletics, for example. In my own case, playing sports, being on a team, and the coach, often was in a position of really appealing to your emotions as opposed to just your intelligence, particularly in football, which intelligence is optional in many cases. But the coach was really trying to elicit emotion, trying to elicit fight or fury or intensity, or all these emotions that would be beneficial, say, in football or in some other sport. And you may have experienced it, in dancing or performing or or any other side of life other than kind of academic, I guess, it would be the way I would look at it. So I'm just going to tell you a really quick story that, so one of my best friends, just by complete happenstance, was actually the leading expert in this field worldwide. It just so happened. So I've been exposed to this for many, many years. And he's convinced me that, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I will say that. But I did learn a lot. This whole idea about, being fully present. Everyone says, well, I'm here. What the hell do you want? Right? I'm here. But the concept of having all of your resources available at that moment. A lot of people are physically here, but they're worried about something. They've got some problem that's just, maybe it's something at home, maybe it's something in the business, but they're so worried that really, truthfully, they are not fully present. And so that's really the point of what she's trying to say, the green, yellow, red. Where are you on that? Are you green? Are you yellow? Are you red? Are you really present? And that's a real skill set to be able to compartmentalize, especially when things are in a really bad situation. You can't just scream at every single person and tell them all your problems, because it has to be, compartmentalized. It has to be rational for when you share that. So being present is really important. So there is a story from India, ancient India, and it turned out that these elephants would periodically go through these villages and just really damage the villages, kill people, just make a big mess of these villages. So the elders of the village got together and said, you know what, we need to get somebody who can control these elephants, that they can ride that elephant. So they hired this person who was thought to be the best elephant rider in the kingdom. And so this person got on board, and was riding the elephants around. And after a month or so, here came the Indians again, and they tore the hell out of the village, So the elders called the rider to a village tribunal and said, hey, you're supposed to be the rider. Why the hell did this happen? And he looked at him and said, you thought my job was to tell the elephant what to do and to guide the elephant. But I'm just one little person, and the elephant is really big and powerful. So what I have learned in this job, that my job is to explain why the elephant just did what they did. That's the best I can do. So that's just a contrast between kind of academic intelligence and the power of emotion. The power of the raging elephant is far in excess of any rational thought. And then the other thing I'll tell you is this whole idea of soft skills. Particularly in the technology area, you'll hear a lot about, oh, that person went to Yale, or that person went to Stanford, and they're a really great computer programmer, or whatever their thing is. And that's a hard skill, right? That's a real measurable hard skill. But then you run across somebody like, and I don't know him, but just what I've read, but somebody like Stephen Jobs or Jobs, however you pronounce it, from Apple, who was known for making really smart, effective ways of communicating. And I'll just give you one example. When he first introduced the MacBook Air, I think it was, he walked on the stage after a big Apple conference where all kinds of products had been introduced and all kinds of things were going on. And all he had in his hand was a manila envelope. And he looked at the crowd and he said, oh, just one more thing. And he opened up the manila envelope and pulled out the MacBook Air, which at that time was the lightest and most portable computer ever. And so he had the ability to communicate that in such an effective way. It wasn't about intelligence. It was about understanding how to communicate on an emotional level. And by taking it out of the manila envelope, he communicated that it was small and light, and et cetera. So, and there are really a lot of stories of leaders like that who use images, who use stories, who use examples to communicate, not just yelling and screaming at everyone to do better, but also using these soft skills to communicate in such a way as that people get it and they want to do it, right? They want to follow that idea. So the elephant in the rider is kind of a classic business school story. Some of you, I'm sure, have already heard that. I may have butchered it in some respects, but as best I could remember. And the story of Steve Jobs and other inspirational leaders, almost always the inspiration comes from the imagery they evoke, the emotion that they evoke, the way they make you feel about what they're talking about. And that's what soft skills are about, really, is the ability to communicate like that. And if you're fully present, if you are able to understand, how do I feel at this moment? And some people don't even know. They don't even know they're anxious, or they don't even know that they're worried about something. It's all kind of subconscious. It's not at their level of consciousness. And that's a real common thing people use to get through life. They just kind of bull through, and regardless of what's really going on, they just keep on trucking. Particularly in highly structured organizations like the military, you'll see those kind of people a lot. They literally don't know what they're feeling. And so all of you have the opportunity to make a choice to learn more about what are you feeling? Why do you feel that way? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to address it? And if your goal, because of the why that you've selected, and you're driven by that purpose, you want to reach that purpose, then you need to do the things necessary to help you do that. And this whole idea of self-care, self-awareness, ability to communicate, particularly your vision and your motivation to people like outside investors or employees that might be on board. These are all critical parts of your success, of how to be successful. So one of the things that we try to do here, as I've communicated, we try to give you access to these resources. I'm not going to quiz you and ask questions and do all that kind of stuff. I'm going to provide access to these resources as much as possible. And you're free to go as far as you want. And if anything I can do to help you even beyond the resources, I'm more than willing to try to do that. But I really believe that the combination of your unique businesses, your unique personalities, and what you're doing, combined with this effectiveness, this emotional effectiveness, this interpersonal effectiveness, will really make you, I think you'll lead a happier life, a more impactful life. And that's what I hope for all of you from this. So anybody have anything to say or thoughts before we call it a day for today?
I had a thought to share. This is
Yeah,
April.
great.
I was going to say, I really enjoyed this one, particularly because I have become a fan of personality tests and getting to know me and how I come off to other people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, or in some cases, you can think that you come across a certain way, but when you get the feedback from people who are on the outside, that their feedback is different from what you thought it would be.
Yeah.
And that was very apparent in the workplace for me a few years ago. And it was good though, because it let me know what adjustments that I needed to make in order to make the impression that I wanted to make. Right.
Right.
So I love stuff like this. And I love that video. She made a lot of good points, and I'm with Judy. I'll probably go back and listen to it a second time.
There's a lot more. We're only a third through it. This is one of the major emphasis of Techstars from their accelerator. They have found that the better the soft skills, the higher the emotional quotient, the more successful their companies are. And because remember, in the case of Techstars, they actually invest in each company. They invest $100,000 just to start. So they're really interested in anything that makes their outcomes, improves the outcomes. And this is identified as really, one of the most important things that they try to teach. So I'm very thankful they give us access to this, and we all get to benefit from it. So that's good, April. I think also it's also important, I think, to keep your context, right? So if you're working for a big company, it's one set of circumstances. If you're doing your own company, whether it's big or small, that's completely different, right? So when you're dealing with a kid, or you're dealing in a sports team, or et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different avenues. So the more equipped you are to understand yourself and what's going on, and your ability to really be present, your ability to actually accurately even understand what's going on is actually harder than it looks. And like she said in the beginning, how many here are self-aware? And a Harvard study showed that 95% of people feel they're self-aware, and the actual results are something like 10 or 15% are self-aware, which I find to be true. In my many age-old experiences at this point tell me that that's true. So, and there's also I think that they didn't really talk a lot about, but growth, right? Emotional growth. When you start a business, and I've had this happen to me, right? I might have started a business with a certain idea in mind or a certain vision, and generally speaking, often it would be a relatively narrow vision. It wasn't like, I'm going to become the next Apple computer. It was more like, I want to do this in this area or this region. And as you go along and you start to meet people who run gigantic businesses that they actually started, you get exposed to this kind of big brain thinking and this big emotional growth, emotional ability to really see things which are completely invisible if you're not ready, right? If you're unable to see it, unable to process it, it might be right in your face and you still won't see it. So that's some lessons I've learned, is that your growth really does dictate the success of your life in many ways. So, but just focusing on your business, you will become much more likely to see opportunity and ways of doing things that will make your business more successful, I think. So, all right. Anyone else got anything they want to contribute? Okay. Well, that's it for today. A little bit shorter than usual, but I know everyone's really busy. So please sign up for Shop Rural Day if you haven't already. There's an information session on Friday, and I'll post that on Facebook if you haven't got the email already from Alex at Pop Shop. Hope you can participate, and I'll see everyone tomorrow.
Thanks, Dennis.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Take care.
Dennis. Bye.